USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, February 8th, 2023. Each week we talk with coach, player, administrator, or journalist about college hockey. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Secure your seats at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Last year, Atlantic Hockey Commissioner Bob DiGregorio announced he would be retiring at the end of this season. And last week, his replacement was named.
And joining us on USCHO Spotlight, the commissioner in waiting, I guess you would say, of Atlantic Hockey and College Hockey America Women's. That is Michelle Morgan. Michelle, first off, congratulations on the hiring. It's a great day for college hockey to see new blood come into this sport, and we're excited to have you. So thank you first off.
Thanks for having me. I'm very, very excited about what's going to unfold here in the next couple months.
Well, let's kind of jump into some things as much as we can. I know that you're still getting your feet wet, but when the job became open and you decided to apply, what attracted you to this position?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think that hockey's always been in my blood. I grew up playing. I played in college. I worked for 2 pro teams in the NHL and really started my career in sports and pro hockey, and then ultimately transitioned into the college ranks through administration and working with a lot of different sports. And through that, I've had a lot of opportunities to work with athletes and help enhance their experience through college and really work at a high level. But this was an opportunity that felt like coming home a little bit, right? Coming back to my roots in a sport that I'm passionate about. The opportunity to really pour into my skills and my knowledge into a conference that has a really good bone structure that I think we can make some enhancements in due time and really elevate and grow the game that we all love.
You just said a good bone structure, and we know that Bob DiGregorio, he's been there since the beginning 20 years ago. And I think he's built this league in a good way on the hockey side. But I think, there's always opportunities to further market. It does seem marketing has changed in sports. I've been in college hockey for 31 years, and you don't market the game the way you did 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. How do you see your experience as both an administrator and, maybe even working in the hockey world at the NHL level? What do you feel you'll be able to bring in terms of marketing this sport? Because that does seem like one of the big key pieces.
Yeah. So I think first it starts with the ability to tell the stories of all of our member institutions and who the athletes are behind, a jersey and behind a helmet, right? And these are people first, they're students first, right? And so we know them through a sport, but there is so much more to them beyond their identity as a hockey player. And so I think it starts there. My background, I started in corporate sponsorships and advertising. So, I did a lot in the league and the NHL, really how do we find partnerships and new revenue streams to make sense of and really elevate the things that we're already doing, right? And so I think that experience will really provide a good base structure. But when I started in the administration world at St. Thomas, my title was director of marketing, and then ultimately left as a senior women's administrator. But my role initially was to drive revenue, right? So how are we putting butts in seats? How are we elevating that fan experience? How are we in a saturated marketplace when people have a lot of different options of things to attend or their discretionary dollars only stretch so far? How do we make sure that this is where they want to be? And so, it starts with the storytelling, but really finding those corporate partnerships and relationships to ultimately, elevate that experience and really be a place that people want to be at.
This might be an early question for you, but one of the biggest struggles of Atlantic hockey on the men's side has been championship attendance. If they don't get it in the right market with the right fan base, then they could have a really, and we know that's a big revenue stream for every one of the conferences is their gate from the championship. Do you have some thoughts of have you had a chance to give that one some thought, and and what innovative ways you can change the championship to improve that?
Yeah, Jim, I don't know what I don't know yet, right? We got to peel back the layers. My goal is to try to get to the championship for both of the conferences, if not the actual championship, some round of the postseason, just to see it before I'm actually in that seat. And as I meet coaches and administrators and players in these leagues to understand, what do they want? What's special to them? What would they like to see change? What's the history and how did we get here? To really find a way to make things work. I think, there's some value to high seed hosts, but at the same time, right, that's probably not the most economic, revenue driving platform that's going to be in the best interest of some of these institutions and ultimately the league, right? So you have to find that delicate balance that isn't a venue that is so big and cavernous that isn't fun for athletes to play in, and that experience really is not great. And so I think those are all things that we need to talk through. But first, my goal is to see what's working, how it's working right now, to better understand before any sort of deeper conversations would be had about how might we tweak some things.
Michelle, as you've looked around the league, both Atlantic Hockey and College Hockey America, what are some of the things that have impressed you or you thought are strengths of the conferences so far?
Yeah, great question. Again, I'm still learning, right? So I think that it's as a single sport conference, right? There's a lot of differences and strengths, but you all come together for one common goal and for one common purpose. So I think that, that is something to celebrate and build on. That's not unique to this conference. That's true to many single sport conferences or especially in the sport of ice hockey. But I think that we have some really amazing institutions and what they're doing, right? There's large and small, there's public and private, there's everything under the sun that can classify our member institutions in these leagues. And so it's how do we celebrate our differences, but also build on those strengths. But again, I think it starts with the people. I think it starts with the commitment of those institutions and the administrators and coaches that are backing these young people. And making sure that they have a transformative experience, not just as an athlete, but beyond, so that they can go out and change the world.
I'm sure you've had the chance, obviously, to talk to the selection committee and from there, the athletic directors quite a bit. Have you gotten some impressions about the folks who are running the member institutions?
There's still more people I need to meet. I've been overwhelmed with outpouring of people that I know and that I don't know. Right. It's a few degrees of separation in how small the hockey world is that I've been not necessarily entrenched in it in, recent years, but how quickly, those relationships come back and familiar faces. So I'm really excited to be back in that sense. But there's certainly more people I need to meet. My goal would be, early on in the spring and even into the summer, even though it's not hockey season, but to have the ability to get to campuses, to see facilities, and have the opportunity to meet face to face with people. Ultimately, that'll start my second week on the job and being at the convention in Naples. So that'll probably be my first opportunity to get to see, the most amount of people, but then certainly thereafter follow suit with more customized visits to individual campuses.
More with Michelle Morgan in a moment. USCHO Spotlight is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida.
All right, class, it's the NCAA Men's Frozen Four. Welcome to Fandom 101. Want to help your team rule the rink? Here's your assignment. Lesson 1, go big for every goal. 2, when you bring it, bring enough for the whole class. And 3, attendance is encouraged, but passion is mandatory. The NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Buy your tickets today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
We're back with incoming Atlantic Hockey and College Hockey America Commissioner Michelle Morgan. This is an era of a lot of change in Division I hockey. As we were pointing out in a column earlier this week, Don Lucia in the CCHA and Steve Metcalf in Hockey East are going to be the longest tenured commissioners as they enter their third season. So there's been quite a bit of turnover there. Plus, there's a lot of change about to happen at the NCAA level. How do you look at kind of the change in the NCAA and college sports in general, even at the Division III level? I'm sure you've had to take into account things like name, image, and likeness and so forth.
Yeah, it's a crazy world that we live in. Absolutely. I've had the privilege of serving on the NCAA Board of Governors over the last year. And so that really has given me a front seat to being one of 20 something people that really are leading the association. So all member institutions at any division, and really to see what's coming down the pipe. And, there are a lot of things that can very much change the identity and the operations of college sports as we know it today. And change is hard for people sometimes, and that uncertainty can provoke anxiety at times. However, I think that if we're purposeful and diligent in the conversations, in the actions that we take, if we're proactive and not reactive, we have the ability to set a strong foundation in what that might look like. It's not to say it's going to be perfect, and that's not to say we're going to make everybody happy, but I think that having that experience, coming off of that experience, I should say, and coming into this leadership role at the conference level, I think really gives me the leg up to understand what are the hot topics we need to be talking about as administrators and leaders on our campuses. How might this affect a single sport conference? How might this affect hockey in particular? So that we can make informed decisions and be prepared for what if scenarios down the road.
A lot of the talk has been around Atlantic hockey, but certainly College Hockey America is a big part of your job. Kind of a younger women's league compared to some of the others, still teams trying to make their way, finally getting back to 6 teams with the return of Robert Morris. What's your overall kind of assessment of College Hockey America, not only as how it relates to the other leagues, but also to Atlantic hockey and the experience that the women's athletes are getting?
Yeah, so I think, as a product of being a college athlete and a female hockey player, right, there's always more work to do, right? I think that there's some really good hockey that's being played, right? And some really amazing stories from these young women and these teams that are happening. But how do we build on that, right? Most people think of perhaps other leagues that may have more name recognition or may have institutions that have a little bit more larger standing brand. But that's not to say that what we have going here is good and great. But how do we elevate and enhance that? I think with 6 teams, right, we have to make sure that we continue to grow and build, right? How are we looking for future strategy and perhaps adding teams or ensuring that we're not losing anybody so that AQ goes away? That's critical in a path forward to be able to be a viable contender on the national lens. And so I think that there's more room to grow. And I think it's going to start with me understanding, again, what's worked, what maybe hasn't worked. What have the conversations been perhaps with other institutions and other programs, and how do we continue to elevate and grow what's happening?
Kind of a tangential question. How's it been to see the move to Division I for your alma mater, St. Thomas?
St. Thomas is doing some crazy things. It's exciting. I happened to be there right when we were getting kicked out of our league. So I was really on the start of that, but had transitioned over to John Carroll before they fully transitioned, before Phil Eston was hired and transitioned over to Division I. But, with the news of a brand new facility coming out a week or two ago related to a new hockey venue and basketball venue, it's super exciting as an alum. I think St. Thomas is an institution that has been purposeful in how they've moved forward and kept their foot on the gas. And they have some very generous donors that help to make things possible. And I know that there's a lot of institutions at any level, at any sport, that are quite envious of the gifts that they've gotten along the way to be able to make those ideas come to fruition.
Before I let you go, Michelle, I'm going to put you on the spot with a favorite moment. You're a student athlete, and these student athletes, you talk about creating memories. What was 1 or 2 favorite moments you had as a student athlete that you take away?
Wow, that is putting me on the spot. It's been a while. I think just the shared memories with your teammates. I was an 18-year-old kid that moved to Minnesota that didn't know anybody. I was the Chicago kid with some swagger, and I didn't really understand or why is everybody so nice and the cliche Minnesota nice. And those were the lifelong friendships and people that invited me over at holidays and Thanksgiving when I couldn't go home because it was just too far away to go, or we didn't have enough days off of practice. But those are the women in my life that have stood by me through the good times and bad, and truly life's moments, and teammates for life. You don't realize that in college that these are people that are going to be with you for your journey in the long haul. But definitely an impactful. So Jim, maybe not a moment per se, but I think just taking away from and a group of people that still continue to support me day in and day out, and I wouldn't trade that for the world.
By the way, did your Twitter account get a lot more followers after you got this job? I'm guessing college hockey Twitter kind of figured out who you were pretty quick.
A few. So we got a few more weeks still as this AD role, and then we'll officially transition everything over back to a hockey platform. But yeah, it's been good to see some new faces, and certainly a great way to engage with people that I don't necessarily know and engage with every single day.
Well, we look forward to getting to know you better as you step into the full role. But good luck in the transition. Hopefully, we will see you around the events this April once you're full time on the job.
Absolutely. Thank you both for the opportunity, and I look forward to working with you going forward.
That's current John Carroll AD and incoming Atlantic Hockey and CHA Commissioner Michelle Morgan. Jim, she's taking the position as the leader of Atlantic Hockey and College Hockey America at a time of a lot of upheaval in college hockey. First, reorganization at the NCAA level, but even more so, kind of a changing of the guard among commissioners across college hockey. As I mentioned during the interview, really only 2 commissioners will have 3 years of experience when the season starts next year. And that after people with decades.
And that's not the worst thing for the sport. Listen, the sport has succeeded and been a great NCAA championship in sport for a number of years. I understand that. But I also look at the landscape and how things will change, have changed, are changing as we speak. And I think that sometimes you need some different thought. And I don't, we said it on Monday when we were talking with Derek Schooley, who's obviously known Bob DiGregorio for a long time. I've known Digger going back to the 90s when he was at Merrimack and commissioner of Hockey East. And, you have to really applaud everything he accomplished with this league. He took this league from small potatoes and made it bigger, but there's still room for growth. And I think that somebody who's a true marketer, who's definitely a salesperson, you can tell that she has the experience in sales, revenue generation, revenue creation. That's kind of what I think Atlantic hockey, compared to many other leagues, has been missing is the overall bottom line revenue. And that is still, at the end of the day, that's what helps make things better. Whether it's improving the championship, whether it's creating a better student athlete experience, whether it's just being able to make sure that every school is on the same level playing field. We talk every now and again, technology gets behind at certain campuses. You want to make sure that you're not the league that's way behind. And right now, Atlantic hockey and the men's side feels like they're just a step behind College Hockey America, even on the women's side. Probably, the fact that they are in such a dire position, with the departure of Robert Morris that will now return. She said it, you never want to see a league go below 5-6 schools, because that's your automatic qualifier. That's what puts you on a national map. So there needs to be some growth on that side. There needs to be some additional revenue generation on the men's side. And there needs to be some new thought. How do you still, at the end of the day, it's about creating a great student athlete experience. Where does that come from? It becomes great fan bases that can be built even if they have to be built at a grassroots level. I don't know that has been always the focus of Atlantic hockey as much as the focus has had to be elsewhere. Sometimes, scholarship growth, finding ways to make sure that teams just had the internal resources to compete. Make themselves competitive, improving the buildings. We've done all that. All of those things have fallen in line. You have, 11 teams with great facilities, good to great facilities. You have 18 scholarships, but now you've got to go and take it to the next level. And what is the next level? It's going to be growing the experience for the student athlete. Make sure that it's a top-notch, well-run tournament. Make sure that travel is fair and that there's an opportunity for a growth and expansion in this league. Same thing goes at the CHA. I think that's where I see Michelle Morgan taking this.
I would add one more thing to all the good things that you discussed, and that's branding. We saw that when Josh Fenton became commissioner in the NCHC, consistent branding and promotion of the league as a brand. The CCHA, when it started up kind of with the remnants of the old WCHA, Don Lucia and his staff, they've built a very consistent brand, not just in marketing, but also across things like live video and all that kind of stuff too. So it has been a terrific thing there. And that's one of the steps now that the foundation has been laid, that the leagues can move forward in. As I've talked to people around college hockey, they've pointed to Michelle's breadth of experience. And certainly she talked about that, having worked with the Wild and the Blackhawks, and also in the world of NCAA Division III governance. So she has been on these committees and helped organize schools with maybe some different interests and different priorities, and has been able to pull them together. Those are two very valuable things to bring to the table in the league.
Yeah, I think the governance particularly, you have to understand the structure of the NCAA and in order to negotiate it. And I think you look at her resume, and she has served on a lot of different, I know she talked about being on the board of governance, but I mean, she has served on a ton of different committees at the NCAA level. That's a great thing, because not every commissioner in college hockey, going back to the six that, have been here in recent years, have even been in that position. I mean, some have served on rules committees, some have served on championship committees, but she has a real inside knowledge of how the NCAA works. And I think that will be beneficial, because I think that we talk about it all the time. College hockey only really has one seat at the table because of it's the Big Ten that can get you there. Otherwise, everything's a single sport conference. So you need some people that understand how to negotiate the inside of the NCAA leadership structure. It's not as simple as people think. And that's one of the critical things. She'll be able to benefit obviously both of her own leagues, but she'll also be able to benefit the good of college hockey by knowing the inner workings of the NCAA.
Bottom line on Michelle Morgan's appointment, it told me that the league's athletic directors are interested in really propelling the league forward. You could have made a safe pick. You could have made an expected pick, but by going outside the box and bringing in somebody with the kind of experience that the leagues need to move forward really tells me that they're serious about competing at the national level. 200%.
It's the right commitment that the league needed to make, and to know that the 11 ADs, the selection committee, was able to make a selection that we talked about it on Monday. It turned our heads a little bit. We weren't expecting it, and then we see the announcement come out last week that she was picked for the job, and you start reading through the resume and you say, wow, this person has a lot of great experience. Nobody had her on their radar screen. I had never heard the name before, but I know that it's not a name that is going to be leaving the radar screen anytime soon. She's ready to do some big things here. You can tell that. And I look forward to watching her work in the coming years.
USCHO Spotlight is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 6th and 8th, 2023 at Amalie Arena in Tampa, Florida. Tickets are available now at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Find our podcasts at uscho.com/podcasts or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Spotlight.